Hey everybody, it's Mike Young, lifestyle nutritionist with aPlantBasedDiet.org. This is chapter 20. Are you willing to give up what's making you sick? You need to be willing to give up what's making you sick if you're going to have any progress in this area. This is a big thing. It's something that's not talked about that much, but when I look at people and I know a lot of people, I talk with a lot of people, I say that this is one of the biggest issues of all. It's never talked about. I think most people couldn't quite understand it if you kind of pose that to them as a question. If you say, hey, Joe or Jane, are you willing to give up what's making you sick? I think most people would say, I'm not sick because, I don't know, they don't have any different diseases or conditions that most of the friends don't have. I'm talking about people over 50. I'm 52 here when I'm making this because everybody seems to be sick over 50. And if you're not, you're an anomaly. And if you're not sick at this moment in time, you're probably going to be sick for a good part of your life over 50, or at least have bouts of sickness. But all that stuff's preventable, right? And of course, even if you're sick, I think, oh, well, this is just normal. It doesn't really mean much. And furthermore, there's nothing that's ever been shown that I can do that would prevent this that happened to me, or that happened to me, or anything that might happen to me. And that couldn't be further from the truth. But the reality is, most people are not willing to give up what's making them sick. That's one of the bigger problems in society right now. And as I talked about in the last chapter about self-abuse, self-abuse for the most part is illegal. Most of the abuse that happens is self-abuse, and most of the self-abuse that actually results in some kind of negative result is completely illegal. It's all lifestyle related. It's all diet related. So when you tell somebody, are you willing to give up what's making you sick? You ask them that question. Most people will not think that there's an issue here. And this is one of the reasons why most forms of self-abuse are legal and will be legal going forward, at least in the foreseeable future. We do think that will change at some point in time, because once the education level reaches a certain saturation, people will not be able to ignore this anymore. And once it does, then there'll be, like an avalanche of things that change in society. And we think we'll be around for that. Hopefully it'll be in my lifetime. It's not that difficult, especially with the internet. I mean, I grew up in the 70s and 80s without any internet or any thought of any internet maybe even ever happening. So now that we're in this age of information and everybody has, where is it? Somewhere around here, my cell phone. Everybody has this stuff available all the time, everywhere. There's only a few places you can even go that don't have internet, and even those are being connected now with Starlink. So those places won't even exist anymore either, unless you want them to exist. It's really, really hard, basically, to get rid of the information. And when I was growing up also, if I was to call someone on the phone, right, pick it up, it was always connected to a cord, and I always knew exactly where that person was. And if I was going to watch some TV and get some information, it was probably one of 3 channels off the air, ABC, CBS, or NBC, if you can remember those days. That was it, unless you had cable or something, which was new at the time. So we've evolved in a lot of ways as a society. And what's going to be necessary for this next change in terms of people accepting what's making them sick is a knowledge thing. And then people willing to give it up is, again, a saturation of knowledge. And what we need to happen, I think, very quickly on a number of levels, not just on this level, is we need people to start using the internet in productive ways, in valuable ways, instead of just massive time wasters. And time sucks is what ends up happening. Like TikTok is an example of that. Any of these games online is an example of that. Watching mindless YouTube videos is another example of that. Whistling Diesel, he's a thing out there. It's just what a waste of time. I can't even imagine. But this is what sells. It's what gets people's attention. And on another level, if we don't change that, if that becomes the way that society functions going forward, and everybody's into this kind of crap, when AI finally takes over, which it will, everyone is just going to be so. They're already going to be fully controlled by the AI and the algorithms and everything. The computers aren't even going to have to try. And I really hope that it doesn't get to that point. We need to connect using this internet technology, using the mobile phone technology to learn, to grow the collective knowledge of humanity. That's what's going to, to help in this area. There's really no other way, unfortunately. So there are so many things that, and actually I'm even forgetting what I was going to talk about in this video. So let me look it up. I got my notes. Okay. See how easy it is for me to forget? That's how easy it is, even if someone watches this video, to forget that they have control over whether they're being sick or not. Because the average person, even if you rope somebody in and tie them on a chair, or whatever, which I don't recommend you do, to make them watch this chapter of this video about giving up what's making you sick, they're not going to get it. They don't understand, or they don't want to. Like I said, other chapters, they don't want to eat cardboard for the rest of their life. They don't want to live in misery for the rest of their lives. So I look like I'm in such misery. Okay, but I will tell you, you know what I am in true misery is when I eat a meal full of oil and salt. I don't even eat animal products anymore. I can't even imagine the misery there. Actually, a lot of the misery too from dairy products, the body odors, the earwax production, the terrible chronic halitosis, bad breath. That is the real misery of life. If you are walking around with any of these things, and these are just the tip of the iceberg, you're already in misery. Okay, so it's just a matter of shifting the paradigm and shining the light on what's actually causing these issues. That's where we need the focus to be, the education. And all it takes is the desire in the average internet user to focus on that. So like the video, this is resonating with you, like the video. It's going to help it appear in more people's algorithms. We're going to get the message out more quickly. I mean, and like I said, we're very optimistic. This is going to happen. The problem is it's taking forever. Like we've been in this since 2014. We've seen all the shift. Like back in 2014, if you mentioned anything plant-based, and especially the word vegan, people were like, oh my gosh, you are some crazy extremist and I want to stay away from you. But now in 2022, it's like, shit, there are plant-based products all over the grocery store, cheese, ice cream, milks, etc., etc. Half the section now in the grocery store is plant-based. Well, hey, we're doing the right thing. We are eating plant-based and everything else. But the problem is all that's junk. All that stuff is crap. That stuff is garbage. It's all ruining your health. It's not ruining it quite as bad as the animal products, but it is still a form of self-harm, a form of self-abuse. It is what's making you sick, and you have to be willing to give it up. And a lot of people, we're happy to see the progress of the plant-based stuff, but a lot of people might have second thoughts about this when they hear me say this. They're like, what are you talking about? You are in this space. You are working with a nonprofit that deals with plant-based eating. Aren't you happy? And like, well, yes, we are happy because there's some progress. But if our goal is to optimize health, people can take control of their own health, live to 150, have a great time, enjoy life, that's just a stepping stone then. It's still garbage from your body's perspective. It's still food-like products as opposed to food. All right, and it's going to be causing the disease in your body. If you're not willing to give this stuff up entirely, it should be viewed as a transition products. Even the fake meats too, I didn't even mention the same thing. They're transition products. That's all they are. If you're eating anything that tastes or smells like the animal product version, I almost guarantee you are harming yourself. You are abusing yourself, just in a similar way as you would with the animal product version, but not to as great an extent and without the karma, for the most part, of eating some tortured animal, okay, or a product from them. It's still bad. So there's many levels to this as well, as there are with most of these chapters in the book. You have to be willing to give up what's making you sick, and you have to take a deep dive into recognizing, well, what is it? What actually is making me sick? How is it making me sick? You need to convince yourself. It's knowledge. Convince yourself with the knowledge. And again, it's not hard to find. You just got to weed through all the bought and paid for science by the existing organizations that are out there, the meat, dairy, all this other stuff. All this stuff it means that there's more than enough information out there. There's too much, in fact, and some of it may lead you down the wrong path. And again, that's why we have this book here, this V-book. So just make sure you subscribe to our channel so that you can keep up with it, so that as we learn, because we're always learning, there's always new things, how to optimize. Maybe we'll switch this book and it'll say live to 175. I don't know, but for now, I think we're thinking 150. We're confident in that. However, you have to be very specific. You have to keep learning. You have to keep that knowledge base internally in here with the internet connected and using the internet wisely so that you are not influenced in the wrong directions, because there are bad influences everywhere. Unless you're living in an intentional community where everyone is totally and 100% compliant, you are probably around bad influences most of the time. You're around people that are not willing to give up what's making them sick. Just think about that for a moment. If those are your friends, they're not willing to give up what's making them sick, then you are next. You are going to be the next person that has abused themselves to the point where you have completely compromised your health in a major way, not in a minor way, in a major way. So this is tough. This can be very difficult because a lot of times, you like this person, they're fun, they want to hang around with, whatever. But go back to the chapter about who you're hanging around with, because if those people are not willing to give up what's making them sick, and this is not an easy thing for people to grasp, well, you can, tell them to subscribe to this channel here, but it's difficult. But you have us here. You have us. Okay, keep coming back to the channel. Keep watching more of these chapters. And as things develop in the world, it will become easier. That I can promise you. So one thing, it's never going to be as difficult as it is to give up what's making you sick and others as it is right now, because we're going to keep getting more people into the fold here that are going to be enlightened and will be making wise decisions, and they will be influencing you going forward. But you got to do your part. Don't just sit around and wait for these people to show up, because life doesn't work that way. Everything you want to get is outside of your comfort zone. All right. So in order to be hanging around with people that are not into things that are making them sick and are willing to give it up, you've got to get outside your comfort zone. That's in a whole other chapter. But for now, just know that's the bottom line. Because if you are willing to give up what's making you sick, you can do anything and you will be successful at this. Just make that choice right now. And thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video. Bye.